Hello, my name is Catherine Drummond, and today's lesson is on how to finish a mattress pincushion. So what you'll need is two designs that are exactly the same size. These are both squares on 32 count fabric. They don't need to be square. A rectangle is just as easy. You can do other shapes, but that takes a little more figuring out when it comes to the band. And then you'll need a band that goes around the side. If you take a look at this mattress pincushion, you'll see it's got the same design on each side. And then there's a band that goes around the edge. And that's what makes it look like a little tiny mattress. So these band designs need to be exactly the same width as your other two designs. So if you have squares like this, then you just have four exactly the same. If you have rectangles, what you'll need is a long one, a short one, a long one, a short one in order to go around the rectangle. So the first step here I've already done. I have cut away the excess fabric after I finished the stitching. And you can see, I think you can see here, there's a line of back stitch that goes around each design. So, and there has to be the same number of back stitches in each section so that you can go all the way around properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over one of these and I'm going to finger press the excess fabric towards the back. And what you want is we'll start with the corners, and you want the corner to line right up, the corner of the back stitching to line right up with that fold. We'll do all four corners here. Then we'll fold back the sides, and you want to fold it right on that back stitch line. So I have chosen to make my back stitch line in the same color as the fabric, which looks really nice as a finished product, but it's a little more challenging to do the stitching because the stitching is a little harder to see. Now you can make these back stitch lines part of your color scheme by making them a different color from the fabric. Okay, so that piece is all done. You can see it's all folded towards the back. Now I'm going to do the other two pieces. Now I've folded the excess fabric to the back of each of these pieces, and you will find this easier if you use a fabric that's 100% linen than if you use one that is partially polyester, like Lugana. So this is 32 count Belfast linen, and it finger presses pretty easily. Fabrics with man-made fibers in them don't finger press very well. So you may have to use an iron, but you have to be careful. So the next step is to secure some thread in the back of the back stitches that make up the outer border here. And I'm using a number 12 pearl cotton. For this, I also did the back stitching with the same number 12 pearl cotton. And these back stitches and this thread that I'm securing right now all have to be very secure because the whole construction of the pincushion relies on these back stitches. So if you see what I'm doing here, I am whip stitching the tail of my working thread to the back of these back stitches. So this thread is not going to come out. Once I have finished that whip stitching on the back of the work, I come up to the front of the work in the corner of this backstitch border. So there's 2 back stitches that share a hole right there, and I'm going to come up right in that hole. Now, I'll make sure this is well folded to the back. And now I'm going to start attaching the top of the pincushion to the gusset, which is what this side piece is called. So what you want to do is line them up so that these back stitches are right beside each other, and you'll go under the back stitch on one piece and under the corresponding back stitch on the other piece. And you want to make sure that it's the first one on each of those pieces of fabric, because if you're not lined up at this point, you'll never be lined up. And then just continue going under back stitches on each piece in a whip stitch, so you'll go in the same direction for each stitch. And you want to make sure that you're pulling that pretty tight as well. So we'll just continue whip stitching all the way across this side to the corner. So as you can see, I've reached the first corner here. And when you get to the corner, all you need to do is line up the next side of the gusset with the next side of the top, and then continue with your stitching all the way across. Under the back stitches. And for this whole process, you never pierce the fabric, you're just sliding your needle under the back stitches. And in order to make this easier, your needle should be a tapestry needle, which has a dull point. And the dull point makes it easier to slide under the thread without piercing it. Okay, as you can see, I have the top all secured to the gusset. And now the next step is to make the seam along the edge of the gusset here. So it's done in the same way. You just want to slide under the stitch on one side and under the stitch on the other side. And make sure that you're pulling tight. And then whip stitch all the rest of the way down. When that side is completely closed up like that, then you take the piece that's the bottom and you add that in the same way. So under that stitch and under that stitch, and all the way across in the same way. And I'm going to secure two sides in this way and then move on to the next step. So as you can see, I have the first two sides sewn up, and You can see the inside here. The next step is to take some quilt bat, and I like the 100% cotton quilt bat because it's more even in thickness than the polyester is. And I like the white because the warm natural color can show through white linen sometimes. So I like to use the white. So what you want to do is you want to cut pieces of this quilt bat that are the same size or just a teeny bit smaller than your back stitched line here. So measure that and cut some squares, in this case squares, but cut some shapes that are the same size. And I like to start by cutting one first and then putting it inside to see how it fits. And you want to make sure that it's in there as flat and even as possible on the bottom of your pincushion. Okay, so that looks like a pretty good fit, I think. So now we're going to pile some more squares on top of that. And try and make them stack on top of each other as evenly as possible with all the edges lined up. So I've stacked 8 pieces on top of each other, and the number that you use will depend on how full you like it and how deep your gusset is. But I think that these 8 pieces will be good. You can kind of test it out by trying to close just with your fingers to see how that's going to be, and I think that'll be good. So now what we want to do is we want to just close up those last 2 sides in exactly the same way that we did before. By running our needle under the back stitches on both sides. And whip stitching that closed. Okay, I'm just finishing up the last side. And you'll probably need a little extra stitch just to close up the hole in the corner there. And then you just want to finish off your thread inside these stitches. I like to go under a few and then go under the last one and a few more. And then take my scissors and snip that off close. And then it's done. A cute little mattress pincushion. I hope that you find this tutorial useful and that you have fun making little mattress pincushions for yourself. Happy stitching!